This is a review for the HyperX Alloy Origin 65% mechanical gaming keyboard. Let's get started. To kick things off, the main two benefits about this keyboard is that it is a fairly cheap keyboard for gaming, coming in at $100, which I know is not cheap for a lot of people, considering that most gaming keyboards are relatively over $100, give or take. That, as well as the RGB customization. Right now I have this hooked up to an app on my desktop called Signal RGB. That is what allows it to have this sort of blue flashing light effect. But normally speaking, if you have that disabled, by holding down the function plus the home button, you can activate a rainbow effect, and then holding down function plus delete, that activates a pink, blue, purple ominous sort of effect. And then if you press the function key down plus page up, you can activate a reactive, so the whole keyboard will go dark, but as soon as you press the button, colors will light up, and it will also light up multiple colors at once if you press multiple keys at once, etc. You get the point. The next thing to note about this keyboard is the actuation point. So what that refers to on a keyboard is how far down the key has to be pressed in order for it to be activated and sort of recognized as a pressed key. So for instance, if I were to press the letter U very, very slightly, I'm not pressing it down all the way, but if I were to press it slightly, that would register the key. Now on other keyboards, you have to press the key all the way down and fully in order for it to activate. The difference between this, as far as whether or not it's important, all comes down to what you do. So if you're somebody who plays video games a lot, this actually is best if it's the lowest number it can be, resulting in the keycap only having to be pressed ever so slightly in order for the key to actually register as a pressed key. Moving on to the third reason why somebody would want this keyboard is pretty simple, and that's the keycaps are customizable. As you can see, I have two customized keycaps for the spacebar as well as the escape. This is not something that particularly makes the keyboard better, but it does allow for the personalization and make it feel more at home, I guess, if you wanted to put it that way. You can customize any keycap that is on here, all the way from the escape key to the arrow keys. Any keycap can be customized. I would not recommend going for customizations that directly impact your ability to press the key. For obvious reasons, if you're playing video games, you want your keycaps to be as easily accessible as they can be. Which actually brings me on to my next point, which is that some keyboards, they have bigger keycaps than this. Preferably, especially for gamers, most gamers have pretty small hands, so the smaller the keycap, the better it is. The last thing you want to have to do is reach out and stretch and hyperextend your finger in order to press a key. The next great thing about this keyboard is that if you hold down the function key and the page on key, and that will disable the Windows key, this is very important for people who play video games, because as someone who plays video games myself, the last thing I want to do is accidentally press this key while in a game, and it'll basically bring up this right here, and that completely stops you from doing anything at all in your game. So always make sure that you have that turned off by simply just pressing down the function key and the page on. Then whenever you press this, nothing happens. So that's the difference between having it on and off. It saves you a lot of unnecessary deaths and unnecessary losses, and can just save you a lot of sanity in the long run. Overall, I would give this keyboard a solid 8 out of 10. Some things that could be improved to make this keyboard better is number one, slightly more RGB customization. Not a lot of keyboards nowadays really have a whole ton of RGB customization as far as like what you can do with the keyboard itself. Most of them you have to have third-party apps. Mine, I use an app called Signal RGB. I have a free account for that. It allows me to do things like have this customized blue RGB effect going around. Another thing that also makes this keyboard not the best is the actuation point. Once again, like I mentioned, it's a very huge factor in people who play video games. The lower the number, the better. So for someone who plays on, let's say, like a 0.5 actuation versus somebody who plays on a 0.01, the difference, although it doesn't sound like a whole lot, is a very big difference. That's the difference between winning and losing, to be honest with you. The final reason why this keyboard is not necessarily quote-unquote perfect is because it is pretty loud. If I just press a couple keys, like that is a really loud keyboard. Now, typically speaking, Obviously for our ears, even if you're somebody who wears headsets, you do want your keyboard to be quieter just because it overall makes it sound better. And no one likes a keyboard that sounds like you're just matching all the keys like this. So that's the real difference. But that's about it, really. This keyboard is very good for somebody who is just getting into gaming. I would not prefer this keyboard if I was someone who had, let's say, a lot of desk space, mainly just because you can then take advantage of keyboards that are 100% size, because that does not actually affect how good the keyboard is. It just gives you more customizable options as far as how you want to use the keyboard. But this keyboard is really good for someone who has low amounts of desk space like myself. My desk is not super big. The keyboard that this is laying on, or I should say the desk size, is a 48-inch desk. So when I tilt this keyboard for games like Fortnite, it actually makes it way easier to play just because of how my wrist sits on the desk. I don't have a whole lot of desk space right here. As you can see, my desk literally cuts off. So I only have about 6 inches worth of space to work with my wrist. So it's not a whole ton. My keyboard, I don't have a wrist rest either, which is also something that does not make this keyboard a perfect 10 out of 10. A lot of good keyboards, they'll come with a wrist rest, and that just allows you to simply just set your wrist at an angle to where it's not aching your wrist, and it's not going to cause things like arthritis, which is a very big and prominent issue with people that play games on keyboard and mouse. But anyways, that's going to call it for the video. Hope you guys did enjoy. I will be making a second video on a different keyboard very soon, so stay tuned for that. Catch you in the next one.